Well, hello, that's me again. Today is September 23rd, 2025. It is Monday, no, Tuesday, I believe. And so, what you see in the beginning is what Senator Mr. Rogozin still cannot see. Well, but then again, he has a humanitarian, humanities education. But this is essentially what is happening on the front line, and Russians retreat continuously to the west for some reason, advancing constantly. And this is just one of the segments of Russian offensive, which happens as we speak, and we can go and take a look attentively at the tally today. As you can see yourself, I start today with the update a little bit on the special military operation. As you can see yourself, there is a ramping up, and significant actually, of the KIAs and, all kinds of the casualties on the Ukrainian side. There is also two surface-to-air missile systems have been destroyed, essentially. One of them is S-300 SP, whatever the model, from early 90s and late 80s, and the other one, I don't know. As you can see yourself, there is a lot of drones flying from the Ukrainian side. Look at this, 438. Well, and I will talk about what they are doing, those drones, and so we're gonna go to our good friend, Marat Khairulin and Lieutenant Colonel Popov, who just celebrated his birthday. So, and we'll take a look at actually Zaparosia map, which is now very, very active. This is from the 22nd. And this is what I want to forestall when I speak about Mr. Rogozin, because this morning some people already started to asking me what the hell is he talking about when he talks about that nothing is happening on the front. Well, Mr. Rogozin, as you can see yourself, it's very active, Zaparosia area, and the problem with is that he complains that it all happens only on the tactical level. Well, somebody forgot to explain to Mr. Rogozin, as I already stated, he doesn't have systemic military education, that actually the operations consist of the combination of collection of the tactical actions. That yes, then suddenly when it's not like you throw the division or, well, brigade is still tactical level, but division or corps as the solid ball, some kind of the solid body. No, they consist of those, formations and units, such as, divisions, brigades, regiments, battalions, companies, and that's how operations are done. It is a collection, basically, it is essentially a combination of the tactical action, which is sharing the common conception of the what is called operation. But again, what do I know? I mean, Mr. Rogozin, evidently, because he was hanging around, and he's a senator, hanging around all those circles with some military, he actually edited, at least he pretended that he edited some kind of the military glossary. You can find it somewhere on the in the internet. So, but yeah, this is just the response for those people who still think that he understands what is going on. He obviously has his own business interests there. He is involved in some kind of the drone company which produces drones, and yeah, but he is not allowed anywhere near the operational control of the things. And as you saw yourself, Russians continue to move to the west. I mean, and why should they really accelerate it when you saw yourself that basically the tally is, just very serious, let's put it this way. Now, that brings us to the point of those 438 drones which have been launched at Russia, and including some attempts again at the terrorist acts. That's the only thing they are good at. And if you take a look at what they did in Faros, which is the resort town, they, you see, these are the targets of NATO, because obviously Ukraine is a NATO army, and especially of Europeans. And as you can see, so this is the school of in Faros. They also attacked the kindergarten. So, and because it was done in the evening, we have only 15, thankfully, people with the which were dead and wounded. Mostly of those people have been in the resort civilians. But as you can see yourself, yeah, that's your NATO strategy. They are not good. NATO is not good as the military power, and as you can see yourself, these are the result of their night or whatever evening attack on those absolutely civilian installations, and but that's what they do. And fact is, when you ask basically how come that they come down to this, well, very simple. As you can see yourself, Mr. Peskov, for example, he talks about the UK, and UK militarily and economically, it's the, it's basically becoming the third world nation, and it will continue to go down this way. And remarkably, Mr. Trump today spoke as much about it on the General Assembly in the United Nations. But as you can see yourself, Kremlin labels UK a key supporter of Ukraine conflict. Well, it's the Kremlin has branded Britain a leading force among nations seeking to prolong the Ukraine conflict and obstruct a peace settlement brokered by the US. Well, obviously it's not brokered by the US, but Peskov has to come up with some kind of the diplomatic, so to speak, bone to throw to Trump to make Mr. Trump feel good about himself. And that was the policy of Russians from the get-go, knowing the psychological outlook of Mr. Trump. So Russians play this game, but obviously everybody understands that at this stage Russians and Americans, they have a little bit of the separate affair, business if you wish. But that's what Mr. Peskov said, that the United Kingdom is one of the leaders of the pro-war camp. The reason the United Kingdom is one of the leaders of the pro-war camp is because actually it doesn't understand war. The armed forces of England or United Kingdom are pathetic, honestly. So is basically the military political elite, which doesn't understand what is going on. And I want to stress that if we go, for example, to our good friend Larry Johnson, he spoke about it. He talks about Charlie Kirk assassination and all things of this nature, which I actually subscribe to. And he is correct when he's stating this, and that, let me put it one other fact on the table. Charlie Kirk was on the Ukrainian death list. Yes, he was the part in the Miratoris as anybody is there, and Roger Waters, for example, is on it, and all kinds of people. So anybody who says that, Ukraine is essentially dead in the war and it's a Nazi regime, which it is, but then again. So, and he talks about that NATO, now back to NATO, the rhetoric pouring out of NATO states is heating up with each passing day, with Poland, Estonia, and Germany leading the way. Based on their public comments, the NATO members genuinely believe that they enjoy military superiority over Russia and are proposing a range of crazed responses to alleged Russian provocations, such as shooting down Russian combat aircraft and closing the Baltic Sea to Russian marine traffic. These are reckless, dangerous, and stupid ways of thinking, and this combination of belligerence and bravado is likely to create an incident where Russia will be compelled to respond with military force. Larry is absolutely correct, and let me explain why he is correct. We have now these things. Again, Estonia open to hosting British nuclear-capable fighter jets. Well, I mean, it's Estonia, okay? We know they mean absolutely nothing. These are chihuahuas, and basically they're, cannon fodder. Well, they're not even fodder. They can put together, I believe, about a company or something. So yeah, I mean, Russians are really quaking in their boots, but NATO leaders considering rules of engagement after Russian aircraft breach alliance airspace. No Russian aircraft ever breached the alliance airspace, but they were talking about those MiG-31s which flew in the international waters, a narrow strip stretching within the Gulf of Finland. And yeah, but because it is, they are poor, they are paupers. I mean, they are basically mostly what the Baltic states today produce are prostitutes for the whatever the they have the NATO, some kind of units, and that's pretty much it. This is just, I mean, absolutely dead. I mean, demographically, they are basically being eliminated as nations, all of them, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. So what can they do? And especially their so-called elite. Look at Kaja Kallas, she's Estonia, she's an imbecile, and she's, I mean, the fanatic Russophobe. So, but yeah, this is what Europe is, and what can I say? They have nothing to sell there, again, except for the prostitutes and all kinds of other things, like services to the NATO, whatever the units are there, small ones. Yeah, Russophobia. Russians attack, Russians are doing this and that, they're going to attack us. Yeah, well, what can I say? They have to have their heads checked, but I mean, Mr. Rubio, no less, today spoke about this, which is like surprising, and you know, he said, no, there will be no shooting down of Russian planes. Even in the basically NATO airspace, unless of course they behave aggressively. Russians do not behave aggressively towards NATO unless of course they are provoked. And yeah, if Estonia wants to, or Latvia or Litva wants to, either, all of them, they want to host the nuclear capable, which is F-35. I mean, United Kingdom will not get any kind of permission from the United States to have anything to do with nukes in reality. But yeah, Russians may react. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? I mean, I have no words to explain the idiocy. But we can continue. And here's this mighty Canada. And the Canada was essentially written off by Russians as they are completely Ukraine supporting, Nazi supporting nation. I mean, I know many good Canadians will come and say, no, this is not true, we don't. I know you don't. But your political elite does. I mean, they love themselves Nazis, and, you know, they are completely controlled now by the Ukrainian diaspora, which has its roots primarily in the extreme Russia hatred. And of course, many of them are the heirs, like, you know, Krista, whatever her name, this lady, who all from the SS and Bandera type roots in their, you know, political elite in Canada. So Mr. Carney, he urges secondary sanctions on Russia to be imposed quickly. My good friend Eva Bartlett, a wonderful Canadian journalist who is now living in Russia, she wrote about it. They continue to, you know, provide cash, Canada, to Nazis in Kiev. I mean, they have no problems with that. And so Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said he wants to see Western allies impose secondary sanctions on Russia quickly in order to dramatically ramp up pressure on President Vladimir Putin. Carney said he's personally advocated the use in discussion with allies and says it possible that the Trump administration and European countries will eventually move forward on it. So yeah, sure, yeah, they discuss it, they want to impose those things, and again, they do this because they are basically militarily, economically, politically, historically, absolutely ignorant. Those people have no clue what they're talking about, and evidently they do not learn a thing how the special military operation proceeds. And what can I say? That doesn't stop them from doing these reckless things. And special Foreign Intelligence Service of Russia, SVR, already stated that European NATO nations preparing to occupy Moldova, said Moscow. European NATO countries are preparing for a military intervention in Moldova, according to Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR. The agency warned that bureaucrats in Brussels, and a bunch of them imbeciles, so intend to ensure that Chisinau continue to pursue anti-Russian policies and will go as far as to occupy, quote-unquote, Moldova after upcoming parliamentary elections. And so they talk. In the press release on Monday, the SVR stated it has observed European NATO forces being concentrated in Romania near the border with Moldova, and further claimed that they are preparing to deploy to Odessa region in Ukraine to intimidate Moldova breakaway region of Transnistria. So, what can I say? Some of them have been already noted in around Odessa. Hence, yesterday's composite strike around Odessa, which, yeah, there have been so-called advisors from France, Germany, what have you, and they have been killed. So, and if anybody in NATO thinks, and as Larry correctly states, they are really uneducated, uncultured people, they don't understand war. None of them, including their top brass, and some of them probably understand. But generally speaking, they are not prepared for the war. And then when you take a look attentively at, again, balance of power, some people, and I understand, you cannot explain to Jorna why he said, oh, they have the army, can they put together an army of 3 million, while Russians have only 1.2 million combat troops and things of this nature. You cannot explain to people which I preach, non-stop correlation of forces and means. You have to calculate the COFM, and this is where it all starts to look completely different for them. Hence the terrorism, for example. The UK, France, Germany, they are incapable of dealing with their real war. They simply don't have resources, they don't have table of equipment and organization and equipment, TOE, they don't have industry which can support them. But yes, they are not very bright people, and when you drink the Kool-Aid which you are provided by Ukraine non-stop, and when you have such military planners like the British guys or American guys who killed a million, probably 2 million of the Ukrainian troops, for the last 38 months, yeah, what do you expect? That's who they are. They are not that good. They are capable of, doing some technological trick here and there. They can integrate something with in terms of air defense. They might improve the command and control thing, provide through Starlink, including through Starlink, some kind of the better communications than the Ukraine had before. But in overall, they do not understand how those resources are matched to the military capability. And here we have this issue. And when I say something about NATO armies, I'm not using hyperbole. I mean it. They are not competent enough to fight modern war, apart from the fact that they don't have resources. And of course, many people do not understand that combined NATO, European NATO, so to speak, mobilizational potential, why important it, you have to arm those people, you have to provide them, with all kinds of logistics which sustain operations. That's what it's called, sustainment. Okay, so can you imagine, for example, Estonia providing sustainment, for example, other than being the battlefield, which will be decided within a couple of hours, and it will be flat, essentially, after that. Tallinn, forget about Tallinn, it will be gone. So will be the political elite in Estonia, Lithuania, or in Poland for that matter, if those people still do not understand that saying things and acting upon them are two completely different things. Which, again, to a pleasant surprise, Mr. Rubio today, when he basically shut down all kinds of speculation that nobody is shooting down Russian planes, unless, of course, Russians decide for some unknown reason attack NATO country, unless they are, of course, provoked. But that's the whole other story. And what we see here, this is the continuation of a complete, incompetence of the Bundeswehr. Okay, these are German generals, German officers. So here it is. Here, German army reveals expected losses from conflict with Russia. I don't know how they expect this conflict to happen, but officials in Berlin have repeatedly spoken about the need to prepare for war. Well, it's Mr. Merz and his ilk, and basically they are morons in Germany. And so the German armed forces would expect to suffer 1,000 wounded soldiers a day in the event of conflict with Russia. I don't know what kind of conflict they're talking about. Russians are not going to attack. They're not going to roll their armor to, for example, Berlin or Germany. No! Mr. Areshnik, Mr. Iskanders will begin to basically visiting those places, and basically German military political elite will be wiped out in the first several hours of the start of the conflict, whatever the conflict is. I assume, obviously, NATO wants to attack Russia because they have no other option, because the population will be getting poorer and poorer and poorer, more desperate economically, while those elites will need to maintain their political power. So, Okay, and here we have now, so that a head of Bundeswehr's medical service, Moscow has repeatedly denied any plans to attack NATO nations, calling such allegations nonsense, which of course it is. Realistically, we are talking about a figure of around 1,000 wounded troops per day, Surgeon General Ralph Hoffman told Reuters on Monday when asked about the Bundeswehr potential casualty rate. The military is looking at the hospital, trains and buses as it considers the potential need, he said. Okay. So they think that they will allocate the 15,000 beds. Okay, you saw yourself that the army, with which Russia fights with the basically one left hand, with the right hand being tied behind the back, yeah, that's 1,600 killed today. And that's Ukrainians. Ukrainians are much better soldiers than Germans, by the way, but than Bundeswehr. So, and because obviously this is the best proxy NATO ever had, and the United States was behind actually arming and training them. Not that it helped them much, but again, so I mean, American generals are not good. They are not competent people, and they measure everything merely in the square mileage of the captured territory, not understanding what real strategy is and how things are revolving. Always were in the war about physical annihilation of your enemy. But then again, listen, when you fight all kinds of the people like Iraqis or even Taliban, I mean, yeah, what do you expect? Yeah, they have no reference point, they don't understand modern war, and as a result, you have this complete, I mean, delusion, which is, well, it's drowned, military political top of, especially European NATO. But, here is your Bundeswehr. They do not understand that their command and control structures will be decapitated, and after that, it doesn't mean, you cannot fight when you don't have centralized and properly organized command and control, or for that matter, the whole spectrum of things, which are C4 ISR, command, control, communications, computer, and of course intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Germany doesn't have any reconnaissance except for some drones. They have few tanks and they have few whatever the Taurus missiles. That's about it. They have IRIS-T, which sucks. I mean, it's air defense complex. And so when you go and look at this, I will have to remind you. Let's go back. Remember this? This is 2 years ago, no less, 2 years ago. Since then, things changed even more dramatically. Oh, it's the parameters. And as you can see yourself, a call to action. Lessons from Ukraine for the future force. So, and they talk about, again, yeah, this nauseating Operation Desert Storm. It's not even serious if you talk about the real war. So, and they talk about the success, what to enable success in multi-domain, large-scale combat operation at today's strategic inflection point. And it's fine. People who wrote that, Katie Crombie and John Nagel, they serve in the TRADOC, which is the Training and Doctrinal Command of the US Army. And let me remind you, and it was 2 years ago. Since then, things changed dramatically, and I want to simply again remind you about that. Here is parameters by professional, military professional, cadre officers. The Russia-Ukraine war is exposing significant vulnerabilities in the US Army, they're talking about, strategic personnel depth, and ability to withstand and replace casualties. Army theater medical planners, that's American planners, unlike Germans, they fought. They were not good wars, but at least they fought. They took the casualties, they took some kind of the, you know what, threats and, you know what, probably some tactical setbacks and things like that. So, and they say that we may anticipate a sustained rate of roughly 3,600 casualties per day. And this is US Army, which unlike Bundeswehr has at least some kind of air defense. It has some air force operating there and things of this nature before it will be completely wiped out of the skies, but ranging from those killed in action to those wounded in action or suffering disease or other non-battle injuries. And so they talk about that the United States sustained about 50,000 casualties in 2 decades of fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. In large-scale combat operations, the United States could experience that same number of casualties in 2 weeks. So if they think that Bundeswehr, which is much smaller than the US Army and essentially technologically it's utterly inferior. It's a third world compared to the US Army, which in itself compares to the third world to Russians. So, yeah, Sure, 1,000 wounded per day. Good luck with that. And again, we are talking about the fact that essentially it's not just about merely killing, although it is very important part of the essentially, imposing your will on the enemy per Clausewitz, so to speak, defining the victory in war. But yes, I mean, how they gonna fight? I don't know. I don't think anybody in Bundeswehr has any clue how they can fight. They will be wiped out, including even before Russian infantry gets there. So, and there is another thing which I'm constantly trying to remind people, and we're going to the same parameters, and here we are. So, and like the Russian-Ukraine war makes it clear that the electromagnetic signature emitted from the command post of the past 20 years cannot survive against the pace and precision of an adversary who possesses sensor-based technologies, electronic warfare, and unmanned aerial systems, or has access to satellite imagery. Yeah, that's what Russians do. And actually, in terms of that, in some of those things like the electronic warfare and now the reconnaissance and electronic reconnaissance, which is called signature intelligence and signal intelligence rather, and yeah, they're best in the world. And what can I say? How they gonna sustain those 1,000? I don't know. So I don't think Bundeswehr will represent a fighting force in real conflict with Russia within a week or two. It will simply be gone. So will be French army. And we're still waiting for all those, Leclercs to appear. Why don't French send their Leclercs? Americans sent Abrams. Germans had their Leopards. Literally, they got that, ripped the new one to the armor force of Germany. Same goes for Challengers. We are supposed to be the best tanks in the world. So why don't they send those Leclercs and see what is going to happen? Where, as I continue to stress, the table of organization and equipment of NATO is not for the war of 2025. It is for the war of 1990 against the enemy who is like Saddam's army. Basic monkey models, significant percentage, up to half, barely literate, the culture which doesn't accept the realities of the command and control, especially officer corps of the modern warfare, or for that matter, any kind of the combined arms warfare, starting from the World War II. So how do you even approach this? No, there's no answer for them, and that is why they're hysterical. They want to create some yet another additional pressure point on Russia, for example, in Transnistria, but that's the only thing. Yeah, they still live within this 19th century or early 20th century Mackinder's understanding of geopolitics, which is completely bunk today, because Mr. Oreshnik doesn't care. It can fly to London or it can fly to Berlin in under 10 minutes and that will be it. But you know what, you cannot explain those people which go through all those degree meals in Oxford, in Göttingen somewhere, and all those military academies in the West which study their fairy tales. That's the only thing they study. So, and just to show you in the end how things develop, here is the latest Russian anti-drone. For those people who believe that drones are the it thing, they're obviously a very important part, but here is, for example, drone which is called Archangel. This is not just prototype, it goes through the very serious testing and is about to enter the serial production. It is a very fast thingy and it is anti-drone, as you can see yourself in this video. And yeah, it's drone which can strike any kind of the moving aerial target, including obviously drones by, let's say, enemy, up to the 50 kilometers in depth. And so for people who think that it's just the other it thing. No. And that is the point which I was trying to make constantly. System operates, system fights. Nothing else. System. This is 2025. This is not 1965 or even 1990s. You have a completely different type of the tactical, situational, and operational awareness, and you know what to do, especially like in Russians. Russian military is joined at the hip with the intelligence community. and which both of them are joined at the hip with the political elite. This doesn't exist in the United States. In Russia, general cannot lie. He will end up in jail, as many did. Some of them have been accused and correctly charged with corruptions. Others, you do not want to go out and write those idiotic reports like American generals were doing during especially Petraeus' time, and going out and talking about how they already won in Afghanistan. We know how it all ended. Nope. In Russia, you cannot do that. You will be immediately replaced. Or the best case scenario, you'll be simply just thrown out of the armed forces. And so this is a different system. This operates differently. It operates on a different military culture. And that is why those people in European NATO, they cannot grasp it. They don't have understanding of it. And even many military, as you saw yourself how Colonel Jacques Beau explained it, that they do not understand. They look at the picture which they are seeing. They do not understand that they have to look not at the basically stop frame, but look at the whole film, and that it's in constant development. And what can I say? But in the end, we can always enjoy the thing with Mr. Macron, who have been whose cortege have been stopped in New York because Mr. Trump was also driving to United Nations, and we have this almost comedic situation. And what can I say? Yeah, I know, give, you know what, applaud to this New York cop who had enough, you know what, he very cultured and very, you know, man was just simply apologizing to President of France, no less, who have been stopped by police in New York. That tells you something. So, and as always, before I go, and I want to express my profound thanks to my wonderful patrons, without whom I won't be able doing what I'm doing today. And as always, those who like what I do and you know, can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too, or subscribe to my channel. So enjoy. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.
I'm sorry, I'm the president. I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now. There's a motorcade coming right now. I'm sorry.
If you don't see it, let me cross. How are you? Guess what? I'm waiting in the street because everything is frozen for you. Are we ready for a while?
The president does have some
Non, c'est bon, c'est bon les gars. Voilà. Thank you. Take care. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.